trip. I think we can officially start now. Andrea, Guido, and Georgia. So, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marion. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales with Curve and Europe Americas. I'm very honored today to introduce the webinar about sourcing and manufacturing shifts, a conversation with brand leaders Cosabella. We have here Guido and Dora Larsen with Georgia, moderated by Andrea Kennedy from Lim College. I'm sure a lot of you already know our guests today, that you had a chance to see in person at previous Curve events on Untitled. The webinar is going to be about an hour long, so feel free to share questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, or use the chat to ask questions. We'll make sure to address them all. If you have any technical issue, we have Sarah here. Sarah, want to share your face? Who is going to be able to help you with any technical difficulty. All right, so I'm going to start with the bio. Thank you, Marcelo, for the question. So we'll be listing all the questions, answering them at the end of the webinar. Starting with Andrea Kennedy. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for being with us today. Andrea Kennedy is Professor of Fashion Sustainability at Lim College. She's also the founder of FashionDext.com, where she is the sustainability lead. She co-produces the Sustainable Fashion Forum in Los Angeles, as well as the annual Lim College Fashion and Sustainability Summit in New York. Andrea consults with brands on implementing sustainable practices across the supply chain. And she also collaborates with trade shows such as Interfiliere and TextWorld. She has designed for Ann Taylor, Bob Mackie, Sonny Lee, Calvin Klein, among many others. And she is the author of the Fashion Designer Sustainable Source Book and the Power of Costing, which is soon to be published. Well, congratulations for that, Andrea. Welcome on your new book. Fun fact, earlier in her career, Andrea actually had a lingerie company who was labeled a roll in the hay. Don't you know? All right. I'm sorry?
My office was in a barn, so that's why it was called roll in the hay. Nice
This is great.
Thank you, Marion, Sarah, Laura, and Raphael. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on to introducing our beautiful hosts today, starting with Georgia Larsen, founder of the brand Dora Larsen, streaming live from Australia, right? Thank you so much for being with us. Georgia starting her 10-year career 10 years ago, working at the lingerie buying department at Topshop. And as a lingerie buyer, she was also in charge of product development. And this is how she works very closely with the design team, and how she actually learned how to design and the technical skills she has today while on the job. About 4 years ago, in 2016, she launched her, oh, sorry, the UK, sorry, we talked about Australia a bit earlier. We're from the UK. I'm like, it's the middle of the night over there.
I was like,
sorry about that. We're talking about Australia, I got all mixed up. So I'll continue. So 4 years ago, you launched your own brand, as you felt that the lingerie market was lacking a brand that would not only focus on amazing color combinations, but also to speak to their customers in a very transparent and open way. Also a brand that would focus on comfort and about flattering women, rather to talk to the seduction or sexiness only. And also you wanted the brand to be very unique in design, so that people would recognize it and not confuse the brand with anything else on the market, right? You also ran a fashion blog called Dora Spur. It was all before Instagram. And you did collaborate with brands such as Free People for their campaign. And that's one common thing you have with Guido, which I'm going to talk about later. Fun fact, Dora Larsen is actually your first dog name, which was Little Bichon Frisé. And people won't blame you. I mean, people call you Dora all the time, and that's okay, I guess, right?
I just don't ask them anymore. I'm excited.
All right. And last but not least, I'll give you all Guido Campello. Welcome, Guido. Thank you for being with us today. Guido is the CEO of Casa Bella, member of the CFDA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America. Guido was born and raised in Miami. Graduated and started a career in interior design, actually, in New York, working from retailers like Anthropologie and Urban Outfitters, Free People, and also MTV. You then moved to Japan for 2 years, and when you came back in 2007, you started growing the Cosabella brand and business, first as VP of Sales and Branding, Innovation, until you actually became CEO in 2015. Under Guido's management, exclusive design collaboration, including Reformation, Banana Republic, Free People, here we go, Barney's, Bergdorf, Neiman Marcus, Bloomingdale's, Galeries Lafayette. Is there any department store you need to work with? I don't know. Shopbop, J. Crew, and you also collaborated with Starz, Netflix, HBO, and Sex and the City. Of course, that was a lot of work, but Guido did all of that while supporting his wife and partner, Sapna, which we talked about a little bit as an introduction when some of you were joining the webinar. Sapna has her own private practice in Manhattan. She's a dermatologist. The name of the practice is called Spring Stream Dermatology in New York City. And she and Guido, just a year ago, right, acquired Journal, the iconic lingerie retailer, on top of everything else, okay? Fun fact about Guido. Well, Guido was recently seen on stage with Cyndi Lauper, and he sang in front of the whole lingerie industry. Some of you might have been there. So some of you who did witness that, feel free to clap on our chat to encourage him. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Andrea, if you want to move forward with the webinar.
Sure, thank you so much. I'm so impressed, Georgia and Guido, with both of your bios. I learned so much, and I'm just really excited, even more so, about our chat after hearing those bios. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you again to Curve New York for having this conversation. So let's dig right in right now to the questions, because I'm already seeing in the chat people are asking about how models have changed. And so let's start with that. 2020 has brought us so much in these 6 months. We've had a global pandemic that has completely disrupted the fashion and lingerie industries. And now with the Black Lives Matter movement, which is so urgent, so important. And if you are watching and you are Black, your lives do matter, and we stand with you in solidarity. But all of this that 2020 has brought has really greatly impacted the apparel businesses throughout all the tiers. So let's start with Guido. Guido, how have you and Casa Bella and Journal, how have you had to rethink and shift production models? Let's talk about production to start, during all the uncertainty that's been occurring.
Well, first off, thanks to everyone for being on. I think everyone's really put into this industry through this period. I think we have to commend ourselves for it, because I have to say the community's grown. Curve, you guys have done an awesome job at keeping it together as well. But the coolest thing that we saw is how much the specialty retailers really put in, and the hustle that we saw, because we've been in constant communication. And while we had to take steps as companies to furlough and take steps for our team that were very difficult, you guys kept us going, and that was awesome. I think one of the cool things with production is, we've been fortunate enough to produce around the world. So Cosabella, really all the underwear, all the intimates have been produced in Italy. The sleepwear has been produced in Peru. And then Journal produces in China, and now is moving to Europe. And we're moving throughout Europe. So we're really building out Europe as an opportunity. And as of this week, with the impetus of what's been happening with this case, we're going to start producing in Ghana also, which is a very great place that was supported by the Swiss government and the United Nations to start production. And at the time, President Barack Obama signed a free trade agreement that lasts another 15 years. And that really helps designers like us and retailers to be able to have some really great product at, great value. And that's the biggest thing that I think has come out of it, is how can you get value and quality and be able to find it in smaller units, smaller quantities, very fast. And when, you speak to designers like us and like Georgia, deposits and these kind of things that affect your cash flow, where you'd rather be supporting retailers and co-op or marketing or events and giveaways, get tied up. That cash gets tied up in production, and that makes it very difficult for us. And that's why also sometimes brands like us have to chase, to be able to find that cash flow to get to the next collection, the next series, and that's very difficult for us. So I would say through this period, it really was the retailers that helped us get through. There were cancellations or adjustments or pushbacks, but with European production, we're just very flexible. And I will say that even in Italy, the tenacity of the Europeans is sometimes underscored by the politics, but the way that they push innovation and they push production allowed them to stay, even in Italy through COVID, working as essential businesses, except for the Easter weeks. So even at the most dramatic points in the Lombardy region, which was the region that the whole world was watching, our fabric producers were at it. They really pushed in, and it was you guys. It was really the retailers that allowed that to happen. And now more than ever, we all want to create that support. And I think what's really unique in production with sustainability is transparency's opened up. Like once you used to never share where you produced, right? Now you're very open to say, hey, there's a great lace maker here. Let me tell you his story because that's another great family business. Or let me show you who's producing this stuff because they need more business, right? Especially now. And I think that's the biggest change is transparency and sharing. And with a lot of the big guys coming down and a lot of the independent designers, now there's that opportunity for community, Middleman isn't as let's say leverage strong, right? So you guys can go, it's like farm to table in restaurants. You can really get down to the source now and participate directly. So that's a big change.
Amazing. We're going to return to transparency and small batch production and all of that. I love how you talked about that you hustled through this and that I always tell people who want to enter the fashion industry, I'm like, we are a hustle industry for sure. And it has been a time of more hustling. So let's continue the conversation about hustling, Georgia, because I'm sure you had to hustle a little bit to sell inventory So how have you been able to shift what you've been doing, how you started out, and embrace some type of innovation in terms of selling that was able to pull in the customer and still be compassionate of all they were going through during this, this first half of 2020?
Yeah, so as Guido said, I think definitely building on a sense of community. Firstly, with our retailers, everyone was in a really tricky situation. And actually what was so amazing about what happened is that everyone really pulled together and I feel like, if anything, a lot of our retailer relationships are stronger now after what's happened. There was a lot of empathy from both sides. And yeah, we did, obviously, same with Guido, we had cancellations. And some instances that weren't necessarily cancellations, but pushing back, stock deliveries to a later date. So there were certain scenarios where, for example, we suggested taking stock of some retailers that couldn't take any more stock and moving it to new retailers who were seeing really strong sales online, for example, whereas obviously the bricks and mortar retailers were struggling a bit more. So we collaborated with retailers and kind of hustled our way through it that way. But then obviously it was all, we had to push our direct consumer. That was like the number one way for us to really push through this as a brand. Previous to this virus, our direct consumer, although pushing our direct consumer was a strategy for the future, it wasn't ever something until now that we've really taken that seriously. But we invested a lot of our time into it, like really telling a story, really trying to come up with as much content as possible, trying to really put ourselves in the shoes of all of our customers and communicate with them that way, try and stop directly selling them product as such, but actually really start talking to them, about what was going on in their lives and how this was affecting their lives. And the response we had was really, really positive. And we saw our direct consumer sales increase because of it, which was great. And that in turn has then given us more drive to, do things such as, invest more in our website and, you know, our digital platforms and all sorts of other direct-to-consumer things that we hadn't even considered before this had happened. So I think it's quite interesting how different our brand is now after everything. You know, when it first happened, we were so worried and so scared, but I feel like now, especially after everyone came together, I feel like we're in a better situation now, but in the sense that everyone's realized that, you know, it's all about transparency and working together. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So you really had to kind of completely change to go direct to consumer in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess everybody had to be creative, and you both are talking about cancellations. You're both talking about DTC, direct to consumer. So what about when, you know, when this is over, will you continue with the DTC direct to consumer model in the same way, or kind of go back?
Yeah, I think for us, definitely we'll continue to push direct to consumer, definitely. But, you know, wholesale also got us to where we are now, and we don't take that lightly. You know, some of the relationships that we built up over the past 3 years with our retailers have been, you know, like, obviously so valuable. And it was the retailers that really kind of got our product out there to begin with, for people to try it on. And, you know, I think there's something to be said for that, because we don't have a store. So it's still, retailer relationships are still really important to us, definitely. I think that, you know, we might have to look at like adjusting our relationships a bit in certain areas. You know, obviously there's certain stores that haven't been able to survive what's happened, or we haven't heard from them yet. So we're slightly changing the way we do things, but I think on the whole, there won't be like a dramatic change. But yeah, I think definitely investing more in our direct consumer is something that we want to continue to do.
Great, thank you so much. What about Guido, inventory and canceled orders and just so much excess? Any advice or thoughts on what brands like both of yours or stores can do with all the inventory that they're sitting on that they were unable to sell online, if you know, during this time? But we have stores filled with merchandise.
Well, first off, it's great merchandise. It's good merchandise. It's 2 months old, right? So that's good stuff. And people will come back. And, you know, frankly, we have people knocking on our windows, even though we're not allowed to let them in. And they're like, let me in already, right? So we know that they're going to want to shop and buy their favorites. So, you know, there's no reason for that side to change. What I do think is exciting is designers like Georgia, and believe me, I know firsthand because they started selling her stuff, and I'm like, I need more of the Marnie, and she's, I don't have any more. So she had only a bit of ATS, but the idea is, you know, we do produce in smaller batches. We do that at least, not everybody, but the point being that our goal is always to run out, reproduce, keep that flow going. A lot of it has to do with inventory cash flow, like we talked about. We are a company that operates in the black. It's different from a lot of the D2C brands that came in, don't really know our industry, they don't sell wholesale, and they were buying and had the option to operate in the red, right? We really have to make those wheels turn, because we want to make it to the next season, and we want to keep doing innovation, and you know, that's a really hard balance, right? So cancellations, you know, the days that we started getting them, we expected, and I mean, I didn't sleep a couple nights, and, you know, I have my up and downs, and I've got my anti-anxiety pills that I take, so I had to take them. It was kind of as many as I could. But the truth is they all came back, right? And again, the boutiques, you know, a lot of boutiques are asking for specific help. We've put out specific help, and I have to say, you know, a mea culpa from, you know, the last recession that we hit, where I would say Cosabella wasn't as friendly. And we learned our lesson, because relationships and, again, community is the most important thing. So if someone needs a cancellation, someone needs to do a swap or return, you know, we try to balance that out. And, you know, I know our sales team works so hard to preserve those orders, because they put in a lot of hard work, and it means a lot to them if people can sell it and sell through it and not have to come back, you know. But at the same time, again, we really think that everyone was so professional and so awesome and so supportive. I would say, across the board. I mean, I really can't even think of an instance. Biggest issue is we didn't have enough sleepwear, you know? So I know that we were understocked, and loungewear and these trends that came in, soft bras, but color now, right? And that's where Dora Larsen's awesome, for example. There's so many brands that do color really well, and we're gonna wanna see happy, right? We're gonna want that. So I don't think we're gonna have inventory issues in it as much as kind of drive that. One other step I would say is, you know, big box retailers do have a lot of stock. There's stores that won't come back and they have to move and transition out of that stock. And, you know, one of the best things that you can do is call these brands and say, hey, if you got some problem, maybe you've got some things that you're accepting back as a return. We did that with one brand at Journelle this past year where they had an awesome bra we sell really well. And we asked them, do you have any returns on it? And they were closing out that bra and they said, we have this many, and, you know, we negotiated a great deal, right? Like where we could help each other. So that's the type of thing that, you know, I think boutiques can really take advantage of, and specialty stores where they say, I've got something that's great. Whenever you have an issue with that stuff, let me know. And, you know, that's an opportunity. And I think our team does that, right? They're looking for those kind of things to drive.
Great. That's a win-win for everyone, and something that not everybody thinks about is calling those big stores. I love how you said that it's great merchandise. I think that, you know, a lot of times the customer is trained to, it's old because it's a few months old in the stores, and, you know, rethinking that way, that it is great merchandise and we haven't seen it, and and now we can go and touch it, or I don't know, at some stores, but that's a good point. And it's exciting that you said that, because I even forget, being in the industry as long as I have, that just because it's a few months old doesn't mean that it's not really exciting. So speaking of exciting, let's move on to digital innovations, online platforms, technological strategies that would benefit brands right now. Georgia, how about you? Can you share something exciting in that realm, please?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a lot of things we've learned recently. I'll start with influencer collaborations, actually, because we found, especially during lockdown, that actually influencers were more keen than ever to work with us. You know, we don't actually directly pay influencers. We only do gifting, really, and affiliate links. So, you know, just to put that out there. But we still had like a lot of great influencers get involved and wanting to work with us, and that really, really pushed things from a social media perspective. And, you know, our following count on social media went up a lot since the lockdown because of all those influencer collaborations. So that was amazing. But obviously, you know, we had to really up-spec our website, and that's something that we've been working on quite hard the past few months. And actually, quite interestingly, something that we brought on recently was, you know, we, especially since, you know, a lot of our retailers weren't necessarily selling our product over the virus period, we were getting more international interest from markets where we were selling in previously. So we brought on a new website platform called Global E, which basically made international ordering a lot easier. You know, I know a lot of big brands already have this, but, you know, we are still a small brand, and we've only just kind of really invested in direct to consumer. So for us, it was really exciting, and it has made a big difference. And, you know, like things like taxes and duties are transparent at checkout. You get better shipping rates internationally. International returns are made easier, everything like that. So yeah, that was something that we've learned throughout the virus, to really, you know, focus on our international markets. And we're able to focus on our international markets even though we only have a warehouse in the UK, you know. So that's, I think, a really interesting thing that a lot of brands who aren't doing it already should definitely consider for the future.
I think there's one other thing that I saw with specialty stores is how open they were to putting themselves on Insta stories, on Instagram. There's a couple that I think have been leading it for some time, and they've really done a fun direction with it. It helped to drive, like, put a smile on your face on some of those crazy days, but make it fun and teach product. And now they're reaping the benefits of it. You know, there's many of them. One local one here is the Dane Shop. I say local in New Jersey, but the way that she worked and how much she's invested in the past couple of years to do that, I think is exemplary, but there's quite a few. There's awesome ones that send us, pictures of their whole team wearing the products and all those tie-ins. And we have other partners, like Calexico in Australia, which is another great one you guys should follow. And I think it's an example of the way that people should showcase and tell the story of their brands. So the biggest thing is people want to relate, right? They want to relate to us and relate to you. And that's the way I want to shop,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think people's attitudes have changed, socially and politically so much, as well as after what's happened with Black Lives Matters. And I think, the word community keeps coming up, the words transparency, equal partnership. I feel like this is the mood of the times now, I don't think consumers want to be consumers as such, they want to be active participants, within brands and respected as that, and I think talking to consumers in that way is always going to be progressive right now, because that's ultimately how they want to be spoken to, especially after COVID-19.
Right, and that's how you speak to the consumer, but you need to be authentic when you speak to the consumer. So let's
believe it. Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that you're not, but there's a lot of greenwashing out there when we chat about transparency. So, let's swing the pendulum over to my favorite subject, which is sustainability and what I teach at LIM College. But in terms of transparency, accountability, equity in terms of partnerships, right? If you're saying that you're working towards that, those are tough things to ensure. So how do you work towards ensuring that those goals that you have for yourself and your company are actually happening within your supply chain?
Well, I think that it's all about, again, transparency keeps coming up. So I think that, as Guido was saying previously, it's always been a bit secretive in the past with regards to production, and people won't let you know where they're getting certain fabrics from. And even we've even had experience working with factories who have helped us with sourcing, who are very who haven't really wanted to be open about where they're finding fabrics and trims, and what the supply chain is looking like. And that's something that has had to change, and I think that we have to put the pressure on that to change as well as brands. But I do feel that the more pressure that we put on, and also not just the pressure, but because the mood is changing, where everyone, I think, realizes that there has to be collaboration. I think that down supply chains, factories and production agents are becoming a lot more transparent, definitely. And we're starting to work more and more with sourcing ourselves directly. So I think the only thing that worries me is that after the virus, there was a lot of cancelled orders and a lot of cancelled fabric. So I think the only thing that concerns me is what happens to all of that fabric, and just making sure that, for example, like we wanted to start bringing in making all our laces recycled, which we are doing, but obviously we do still have a lot of fabric that needs using up. So it's been harder for us to make that sustainable move immediately. So it will be interesting to see how we overcome the cancellation, how the production overcomes all these cancellations, basically, and ensures that it does still maintain a level of transparency and collaboration for brands.
It reminds me of a story outside of our industry, but in the food industry, when Italy had the earthquakes in the Emilia-Romagna region, where Parmigiano, the cheese, is from, the warehouse, all the cheese wheels broke because they all fell down. And once it's broken, it's spoiled. So it was, years of inventory that was gone. And Massimo, the chef of, the Osteria Francescana, which was the #1 restaurant of the world at the time, put out a plea to all chefs all over the world to do a risotto and to use up all that cheese. And it ended up becoming, I think, the biggest year of revenue they ever had, because they were able to clean out that cheese, right? And it didn't go to waste. And it was one of the most amazing things that an industry could do together, right? And chefs could do together. They made one dish all together. And I think that's one of the cool programs, Dora, that we should talk about, right? Because one of the things, I was speaking to Suzanne from Sugar Cookies who swang by, is we've been talking about doing a private label catalog for boutiques to be able to have their own labels with some really cool and great margins, right? Almost like if they were buying the collections like us, but us developing it for them. And the idea is, let's use those fabrics, let's use those ideas, and put them out as a catalog, and then every store can literally have their label on that product, and they can tell that story and pick from different people. So that's something that we want to bring forward immediately. And right before this call, that's what we were looking for, even in loungewear. Portugal and a lot of these countries have so much excess fabric from the Zaras of the world who've canceled, but there's great fabrics. And that's what we're going to bring on that loungewear side. And, you know, we're working together on.
I love that.
Yeah.
Besides the fascinating cheese story, I love that, I mean, because we call those fabric dead stock fabrics, right? So, I mean, if you're just even more sustainable than using recycled fiber fabrics would be dead stock fabric. I make something new, even if it's circular, when it's sitting there, you know, on Earth right now. So excellent. I want to let everyone, all our attendees know, if you've put a question in either the Q&A or in the chat, we will get to them. We'll just ask, we're going to stick with sustainability for one more question, and then probably start pulling from here before we go forward from the questions that are coming in. But thank you for all of these questions in the two spots. Let's stick with sustainability for a moment, please, and talk about a sustainable practice that you've put in place at each of your brands that you can share with all of the viewers that's working for you, because so many people want to know, how can I start, or how can I go deeper into my journey in sustainability? So what is something that you've put into place that's working, and working in terms of it has been implementable, and customer reactions and buyer reactions have been positive? Anything either of you want to share on that?
Yeah, so for us, the first thing that we did, and this was definitely the easiest thing to do, you know, I think that definitely retailers could look at doing a similar thing as well. You don't necessarily have to be making your own product, was all the packaging side of things, you know, and printing as well, using natural inks from printing. But yeah, the main thing that we did was basically turn all of our gift packaging and tags and anything else you can think of where we use paper into 100% recycled. And then we also, you know, I can't believe it now, but we used to use, you know, obviously for everything in a plastic bag, and we just moved everything to be fully compostable plastic bags as well for when we ship wholesalers. Awesome. And that, you know, it's astounding, you know, I'm sure every time you've ordered anything online, and I ordered a Chanel lipstick the other day, and it turned up and it was encased in about 5 different boxes, a big plastic bag, and I just couldn't believe it. So I think that, you know, packaging is something that we can all work towards, and it will make a really big difference, firstly. And then when it comes to products, like I was saying earlier, we are looking to do recycled laces. Obviously, it's weighing up that whole dead stock fabric issue that we're in right now, you know, and you know, what is more sustainable ultimately. I think the answer obviously is to use up the dead stock fabric. So I think that there's a balance to be found with that, and it's a way of trying to communicate that with our customers, because I don't think customers realise how much fabric there is out there, you know, that was cancelled, and I think that there does need to be some like real education to customers on this side of sustainability too. And then, you know, we've changed, you know, just little things like our cotton gussets are now 100% cotton, 100% organic, sorry. And then, you know, we're looking to produce collections in the future that use fabrics that are, you know, completely 100% organic cotton bras, and, you know, not just gussets, and nightwear collections, and pushing, you know, just I think sustainability obviously always has been a really important issue, but for me personally and for our customers that we've spoken to, after the virus, it's just for us become just even more like we have to sort this now, because I think the virus highlighted to everyone that things can happen in the environment, things can happen in societies, and we need to be prepared for them. Things aren't as kind of just as stable as we like to think they are, and we need to be a part of making that change. So for us as a brand, sustainability is like I was saying to you earlier, it's literally at the top of our agenda now. And I think that yes, customers react well to it, and yes, I think we do have customers that want to buy from us more than another brand because we're sustainable. But I will say that I think the majority of customers maybe don't, it's not the main reason they buy. But I do believe that in 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. years' time, it will be the main or one of the main reasons why customers make a buying decision. So I think that it's important for all brands to start the process now, even if it's not the main reason why people make buying decisions now, it will be very soon.
I would just say, like, if I take, myself from now, and if I could speak to myself in 2016, I would have said, hey, educate yourself on what sustainability means. And it's evolved, but there's different forms of sustainability. So while some people don't want plastic bottle recycled fabrics, or they don't, necessarily, they're not sensitive to chemical production, they don't understand it, there's other just simple business practices. And we break it down in about 4 that, can be detailed out. And we follow the one that's the most appropriate right now that we can accomplish. But had we understood that before, we would have helped educate retailers on that. But it took a retailer really like Reformation to come to us and say, we have some really strict guidelines, good luck in trying to make our product. And they really challenged us. And, I think that's really gave us an impetus to move forward. But it takes that relationship back with retailers always, to be able to effect change or effectuate change, which is the term I love now, because it takes all parts to work together on that. So the more, you can spend time studying it and understanding it or asking us those questions, the result will, you'll be much more comfortable to explain it to your customer, and your customer loves that, right? Just like they want to hear about, what country it comes from. So.
Exactly. All great points in sustainability. I mean, education is so important, and it's so urgently needed in order to just draw down the CO2 in our atmosphere for one of the many reasons that it's needed to work towards that. And we need to understand the whys. I'm going to move to, we have questions in 2 places. So I'm going to bounce back and forth just to be equitable to all of those people and putting them in. But we have quite a few questions in regards to sourcing and producing. So I'm going to, where should we produce designs, considering production is shifting away from China, as well as talking more about transparency in production. Should we use blockchain, or what should we use for sourcing and supply chain transparency? So 2 questions into one, but let's talk about production right now. Please. Whoever wants to start.
George, you want to start?
Do you want to? I'll go after you. You go first.
So the question being, so I understand.
Well, a couple questions. Someone asked about where do you suggest they produce, since so many people are shifting away from China? Should we start with China? Should we go elsewhere? And then wherever we go, how should they be using blockchain or another technology to really get that accountability across the supply chain?
Well, if you have a carte blanche right now, yes, technology is the first thing you're going to look at, because there's so many cool apps and things you can tie into. For a brand like Cosabella that's 37 years old, to make those changes is like, we're going to get our eye off the ball. So really, if you're starting new, first thing, you want to look at technology that's out there, interview everyone, understand what your basic ERP system is, which is going to control your records, and then how everything relates back into it, because your website does, your store does, everything does, and even your product, your PLM. The other factor is you want to look at duties. You want to look at political climate. You want to look at social climate, because your ideal situation is that you find somebody that you love so much, and 20 years from now, you guys are laughing about the first collection you did, right? And you can build that relationship. So you really want to find stability. That's the other big thing. Don't chase the dollar, don't chase the cent, don't chase any of that stuff. You want to find people who you're like, you know, I really am happy that I worked with this person and they didn't let me down, or, you know, they didn't do things that were not appropriate, or there was a war that broke out, right? The other challenge is you have to respect everybody for what they do well. If you want Pima cotton, you don't go to Italy, you go to Peru. That's where it comes from. That's where they work it amazing. If you want really cool, trendy loungewear and styling, there's amazing people in Los Angeles. And not just there. If you want to do silks like Janelle does, China. I mean, that is a silk capital, the quality of silks. I'm not saying you can't do it other places, but you know, where's the home of that? I think Italy, Europe, you know, levers, Textronic, all these laces, like you're able to really explore the options, and they're so innovative there. And you even have lace manufacturers and machine manufacturers that want your input and want to develop with you. So, you know, you want to find the places that make sense. And then here's the other thing. This is my personal point is if I want to travel there and make it feel like a vacation, right? And work as a vacation, it's that much better for my psyche. It's better for my inspiration. It's better for the way that I'm gonna relate to customers if they're calling me about a problem while I'm there. So I'm very excited because we're gonna start doing some loungewear in Portugal, and I love that place. So I can't wait. I want relationships north and south. So you wanna find places that you really want to go to, because you gotta spend time there and work with it, you know? But it's cool to learn about everyone's skill sets. So that, we wouldn't have done categories. Our team wouldn't have worked on specific things had we not had that, you know? So.
Yeah, I agree with Guido 100% on all of that. It's, you know, you have to find a country that is specialist in a certain area. That is the ultimate, you know, that's the ultimate issue with all production for sure. So at the moment we only do lingerie, and we get a lingerie made in China. But you know, China is really great for lingerie, you know, so we've, you know, so far had really great relationship with our factory. However, I do think it's important, especially post the virus, that diversity of supply base is something that everyone considers, because, you know, again, like Guido said, you don't know what's going to happen with a factory, and you know, you need to make sure you have a backup in case there are any problems, and especially if you're able to look at factories in different countries as well, because you don't know what's going to happen politically either. So, you know, I think that's definitely key. And yeah, so we're looking to do nightwear next year. So for us at the moment, that's, you know, obviously we want to look at a different country for that, a country that specialises in that area. So.
And
yeah.
duties, I forgot. That's
yeah,
a big one.
that's
so
true.
Free trade agreements, like Peru, like Western Africa, like really understanding what's happening. China actually made a big adjustment with the phase 1 of the deal now. So you really want to play into that. Understand your duties. It's big. Even the way you name your collection, the way you name a style. If it's a teddy or a bodysuit, makes a huge difference. So
Right.
knowing those kind of
I
things.
know that, actually, that's interesting.
With the US it does, because one's ready to wear and one's underwear.
Yeah, right. Okay, right, yeah. I'll make a note of that one.
Right. And then you brought up partnerships. So a lot of the people I know are crowdsourcing almost, and putting together, you know, placing orders together to meet minimums so that they no longer have to buy these large batches of things. Any partnership
Yes.
great things happening that, let's hear it quickly.
Yes. I mean, ultimately, you know how a lace machine works. A lace machine is spools and spools and spools that go into this machine. Downtime is a problem because it means that they have to replace those spools. So if I'm doing something and I say, hey, you know, Georgia, I got this idea of this lace. I know you can do a different design with it, but we can go ahead and call Colombo, who produces these laces. And I say, look, I'm going to run mine. You run yours right after. It's going to be great for him. That's awesome. Like, these suppliers would be like, that's great that you guys are talking, because it's Georgia would have called me 3 weeks later and I would have been like, that's dumb. So the idea is, as people work and understand each other's techniques, it's really cool to be able to tie that in. And the more you know your suppliers and vendors, the more they'll be able to make those suggestions, or they'll call you and they say, hey, I know I can make this lace for you because I've got the machine ready. It's going to be extra fast. I'll go ahead and make 300 meters for you because I just want to, right? And they hold it for you. So you want to think of efficiencies like that, you know? It's the extra tomatoes from your pasta sauce that you need to use the next day. How are you going to use them? And if you can like send them to your neighbor because they're throwing a party better, right? Maybe trade off. So
great points, because setup is so much part of your cost, right? To do that over and over again. So someone is asking, Juliana's asking about the quality of lingerie in the market now, that a lot of the quality is quite lower, and how can we work towards higher quality and creativity? I'm loving that side of the brain. There is a market for it. So how do we work towards quality in lingerie that's going to be more expensive, and how do we offset those costs so that the merchandise doesn't raise so much?
Georgia?
Oh, yeah. Well, to be honest, I think that ensuring, as from a brand's perspective, that you're not just churning out millions of different products all the time, that you can't really give the time to, you know, and also just things like when you're developing a line, choosing, say, a lace or a mesh or whatever you choose, and using that across several different styles. Because I think with quality, one of the main issues is that when brands have too many different styles, all in lots of different laces, not enough time is necessarily gone into the testing of those fabrics, or ensuring that, like, they are even buying those fabrics in enough quantity for them to come from a really good lace supplier. So I think that's definitely an issue. But yeah, I mean, it's quite hard to say because we don't produce really, really expensive products where bras are sort of over £100. So I'd be interested to know, I suppose, how you could produce that type of product cheaper. Because obviously, you know, you are going to, if you're going to wholesale, then it's quite tricky, because you have to build in your margins for your retailers. But I mean, potentially there will be more brands coming up that want to go direct to consumer, because that's obviously a way that you can reduce your retail price. But I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if you've got any ideas on that, Guido?
Yeah, you know, we work on this concept of mixed margin, right? And I think every retailer does, right? Where you know that there's certain things you're buying because you know you're going to sell it for, you know, a really cool project or what it is. Direct to consumer has always been a challenge because a lot of, you know, our wholesalers like, why is Cosabella doing that? But it allows us to, one, educate on a much wider assortment of product, especially, you know, size extensions and all of these things. And you have to think of us going wider allows us to bring our consumptions into a more realistic place. But just like a restaurant who knows that they're going to feed 50 people, they have a lot more efficiency than 10 people. I keep talking about food, I must be hungry. So the idea is the ingredients make the best dish, right? It doesn't matter how good you are at measuring and doing all these things. If you've got the right ingredients, it's going to, you know, drive it out of this world. Then technique comes into play, right? And some of those details and finishing details. So what we try to accomplish is this mixed margin idea. And our team, you know, it's a really talented team of people who have seen buying and planning across the retail spectrum. And they think of our collection that way. So there are things when you buy them for your stores that are an opportunity cost because you need to be able to carry that conversation forward. So you should expect to have a lower, tighter IMU to be able to sell it at value for the consumer. At the same time, then you build up your replan and those things that allow you to build a business. You work with other brands and retailers other brands and vendors to accomplish that. So you can't expect, like, if you're like, I want this margin on all product, I don't care, like, that's going to be a very tough business model. You're going to have a lot of things that you have to do a promotion and markdown at the end of the season. Come in holistically. And I think brands like us, this whole seasonless fashion thing that people are talking about, brands like us want to coordinate with you, because now with our direct-to-consumer model, if something's really a bomb for you and it just doesn't work in Michigan, but I'm blowing out of it because I've got people ordering for the UK, like, I'll take it back, right? Let's work on it. And I don't want you to mark it down and throw it away, because we can sell it well. So that allows us to do products at different scales. But 100%, it was price. I am you. And that was very hard. But I think production's caught up. Quality around the world really has caught up.
Yeah, and I think the customer as well, their expectations quite rightly are raising, because, especially from a sustainability perspective as well, we need to be encouraging less is more. Like, I think that's a message that we want to really start communicating. Like, obviously we want people to buy our products, but we don't want people to excessively overbuy. We want people to buy things that they can wear for a really long time. And I think, that's something that is more and more becoming a focus of the industry. And as long as we all just keep pushing that on our suppliers as well, and saying that it's a #1 priority for us, then we'll all develop product like that. And I think that we're all moving in the right direction with it, definitely.
Right. And I also want to add that I think that we need to be a little more flexible on our due dates. When we're giving an order to a factory, that if you need it really, I need this in 3 weeks, they're going to sew it a little faster. And often faster sewing is longer stitches. Longer stitches come out and unravel a little easier. So if you want detail and quality, allow companies and factories and manufacturers to take the time to do it with quality, because you can't have both. Haste makes waste. I have another couple of questions. One is Sam's asking about DTC. So we've been chatting a lot about that, but all these stores are like, are thinking, what about us? So what if you are a boutique not available online? And you've got these DTC lines. Any chance of offering products in the future? Have you thought about that to the boutiques that don't sell online?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I think that goes into what we were talking about, these special products, these special cuts that designers can kind of collaborate on. We do look at specific products that we want to put there. I will tell you, the sales teams, they fight for it. Like, they really fight for their boutiques. And I can hear it echoing in my head about how we don't do enough, right? So a lot of that play is more about also figuring out what those items are that can carry. If it's a particular color, style, you can launch it in boutiques, and you want to try to coordinate that. So yes, 100%, that's what we need to do. And boutiques need to keep challenging us to do that.
Good.
Yeah, and also, I think because we are moving away, I think overall the industry is slowly moving away from this obsession with marking things down, putting things into sale all the time. And I think that is only going to be good for boutiques, because I don't want our product to be old suddenly. I want like Guido said, for there to be more transmission between stores and back to us. And the most amazing thing is that we work in lingerie. We don't work in clothing. We're not under that pressure, the same sort of pressure that suddenly we're in autumn, winter, and it's not relevant anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think that, definitely we need to encourage that way of working, and then the boutiques will still maintain, the same new relevant product, because it is relevant new product. It's not old,
Amazing. And talking about new product, let's talk about when new product comes into stores. We've got Jimena asking, she's saying hi from Mexico, but when do you think really ideally fall, winter, and spring, summer should be coming into the stores? What's your strategy around that? When should you be delivering?
Oh yeah, and so for us, our plan has changed. We were going to launch autumn winter now actually, and we put our order on hold after the first week of the virus, when we received a lot of cancellations. We were very nervous about what was going to happen, so it has been postponed now to August. And then the rest of our drops have been moved back a bit. So it's quite hard to say, because I still feel we as a brand anyway are in this period of kind of not necessarily knowing what's going to happen, because we're not launching how we would normally launch. So it's all very different for us, and it'll be interesting to see how that works. But I will say that actually it's made us consider more the concept, like I was saying earlier, of not being so seasonal, and actually just producing, because we used to be very much a brand that was like, this is our summer collection, this is our autumn collection, and we launched those two collections at these times. There might be a couple of drops in one, but that's it. Whereas now we're moving more towards a drop in August, then we're going to have a drop in October, then we're going to have a drop in December, then we're going to have a drop in February, and so on, and do it that way, and do it in a more continuous, sort of organic way as well, and so that we can be more reactive that way to what's happening and how our sales are going, and kind of being more reactive will be obviously so much more beneficial for us, and it will make sure that we've either got enough stock or we don't have too much, so yeah, that's basically our plan.
I think geography and climate is huge still. Like if you're in Miami right now, it's 100 degrees, like you're not going to wear velvet, so you still have to play into the seasons in the right way. However, if you flip on the other side of the world and you're a brand that now is catering to Australia or catering to Argentina or different places, you're thinking differently. And even within countries, there's difference in climate. So you have the opportunity all year long to kind of do some seasonless product. So the focus is what can be seasonless, what colors are seasonless. What's really cool is Bordeaux, for example, man, we blow out of it in fall. But what I realized this spring right now is because reds and red tones are back, Bordeaux sold well through COVID, right? Yeah. We were selling all this Bordeaux. I'm like, what the heck? So now let's go ahead, and in next spring we've got Bordeaux going, and it's carrying forward from fall. So the idea is if people start moving into colors that can be year long, right, then you can take some basics and make them as an open catalog. And if you can reproduce them quickly, low MOQs, then you can keep offering it as long as there's trend. But the biggest thing you have to do is protect price then, right? And that's the conversation I was having this morning with my team is, how can we get people to not mark down the 90% of great colors, right? There's always a color that bombs, or there's always a color that's just ready for that. But the rest of it can hang around. So is that returning it if it doesn't work for some people and giving it to others, just so it stays full price? That goes back to margin, goes back to that story. So the idea of the seasonless fashion in underwear is legit. Like we're the best category for sure, like Georgia said, to be able to deal with that. And the other thing with loungewear and sleepwear, we got air conditioning like crazy in this country, right? So frankly, we can wear long sleeve and long pant all year long, So so there's the opportunity for this product to kind of carry forward and not burn it.
Yes. So we have about 2.5 minutes left. And before I ask you for closing thoughts, there's a bunch of questions. I apologize if we didn't get to it, but one that's a fast answer is, what's the best country for shapewear?
The best country? I mean, the US is awesome, I think.
So
in terms of producing, you mean?
Yes, for producing.
Oh, producing. Give us a call. MOQs are a problem. MOQs are a problem in shapewear. That's the problem.
Listen to our last question. So the last question is, how can people get in touch with you both? And what are your final thoughts? Let's leave on something optimistic. What everybody's reeling from the impacts of 2020 so far. So what can they do while they wait for business to return to normal? What will help? Let's leave something optimistic, as well as how can they reach out to you if needed? So who wants to start?
I think the one thing to remember is that we are living in a new world now, and it's a more connected, positive, collaborative world. Like power struggles that used to exist, whether they were between retailers and brands, or whether they were between brands and suppliers, are dissolving. Everyone is having more transparent conversations, and I think that new world is going to give all of us more opportunities, and it's going to, and everyone's working in a more empathetic way. I personally feel like everyone is working in a more empathetic way. Because we've all been through this together, and we've all experienced how hard it was together. We all feel more like we understand each other, and understand that the other, you know, business has gone through such hard times. So I think that the main thing to take away from this whole thing for me is collaboration, and that is the future of this industry, is collaboration. And I think that we will all do well from that, definitely.
2020 is vision, right? And we all thought, oh my God, it's going to be an amazing year because we're all going to have clear vision. The truth is, to get clear vision, you got to go through and clear out and reset a lot of those things. And I think I can't even say the word, conscientiousness, right? We're wearing masks now that are annoying, right? But we're doing it because we're thinking of the next person and we're thinking of people other than ourselves. Black Lives Matter, and we're thinking about people other than ourselves and getting out there and in telling that story around the world, right? So regardless of our opinions, getting to that point of respect, and this year is an election year in the US at least, that's going to be very pivotal for the world, and being able to really learn how to listen, respect, conversate, and then deal with the next 4 years, right? So regardless of what happens, that is what I think this society's changed to, is that conversation is open. Things are out on the table. Some people are still guarded, let's say, but it's going to be an opportunity for people to really open up. Pride, I mean, what an amazing thing with Pride. And the concept's now taking us to do lace lingerie and Cosabella for men, right? So we're starting to expand into categories. Zalando is creating a category that's not male nor female. They're putting another category to talk about that kind of product. Why not, right? So I think this year is just going to help us reset, get forward. Technology is going to play a big role, and a lot of us can reset and use that. But we need to care for each other. And that's what, you know, like the word community keeps coming up. George is right.
You're right. We need to care for each other, and for all beings on the planet, because we're all connected. And I think that's one thing that 2020 really showed us, is how, you know, everything moves so fast globally because we are all so interconnected. And it really made us realize, you know, when the stores closed, the Bangladesh factories closed, and the farmers, nobody was being paid. And I think it gave a lot of people in our industry, at least, a really like a vision that they hadn't seen before, that just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And I think that ultimately things will be good. Marion, I see that you're here, so we must be.
I'm back. Yes, thank you so much. I mean, Andrea, for moderating. Thank you so much. Georgia and Guido, for your very, you know, it was very inspirational, and I think you addressed a lot of questions that were asked today. All participants, if you still have questions or you think about questions later on during the day, please make sure to email them to us, or you can still use the chat and Q&A for a few minutes. We'll stay connected so we can gather all feedbacks from you guys. I just want to close very, you know, quickly, saying that this webinar was brought to you by Curve and Interfiliere, which will return physically in September, and I can tell the dates now. It's official. So the shows will return in New York, September 21, 22, and 23. So we hope to see you all there in the safest conditions possible. It will be taking place at the Javits in All One He. And we're also working on dates and location for Los Angeles, which we'll be telling more about that very soon. So if you have questions about the shows as well, I'll stay online for a couple more minutes, and you can always, you know, reach out to the team at marketing@curveexpo.com or info@curveexpo.com, and we'll make sure to answer all the questions you may have. Thank you so much again for being with us. Come back next Wednesday. We'll have another fantastic webinar. Same time, 12:30. It's going to be a conversation between Alan Lewis from Lingerie Briefs and 8 amazing lingerie retailers, including Trousseau, The Pencil Test, 40 Winks, Lee's Closet, Lush, Revolution in Fit, and Melmira Brand Swim. So I look forward to see you all again next week. And again, stay on the line, send questions in your chat if you have any about this webinar or the shows, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much.